So Jim Irsay pulls Jeff Saturday out of Friday Night Lights games, and the hapless Colts rip off a win. The Bucs look like they're going to kick the bucket, and they lean on a rookie running back instead of the GOAT and roll off a really good-looking win against a strong Seahawks team.
Mm-hmm.
The spiraling Packers get a big play receiver back in the lineup and knock off Dallas to spoil their old coach's homecoming, no less.
As one does.
As one does. And Matt Rule got canned, and the Panthers look like a real football team again. Down is up, left is right, cats and dogs living together. In short, pandemonium. Welcome to the NFL.
It's Mondays like this when we reach for the Lagavulin at 10 o'clock in the morning, EJ. This is the cure for all ills. Jay, we have a lot to talk about today. Please roll the intro. Welcome, everybody. I just gave myself accidentally an extraordinarily generous pour.
Oh, man, that sounded
16.
healthy.
It's going to last me the whole show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bootleg Football Week 10 recap show. As we alluded to, a lot of weird things happened this weekend. A lot of fuckery, as one might call it, around the NFL. Certainly some teams won that we didn't expect. There were some games that were a lot more competitive than we expected. If you did any sort of 4 or 5 game parlay, you probably lost. That's how things went this week. So we have a lot to talk about. But before we get into the start of the week, kind of giving our thoughts now that we've fully absorbed the Thursday night matchup that we streamed last week. EJ, how you doing? How you feeling? How was your Sunday?
It was busy. It was a good time. My other podcast partner, JB from Bears Over Beers, is on the West Coast, so we actually got to hang out, which is a very rare occasion, in person, watch all the games up at Buffalo Wild Wings, and sort of marvel at all the last-minute losses and everything else. But it was a pretty good time. Late night putting the agenda together, and first thing Monday morning, here we go. So it's a fun week to talk about, unless, of course, like you said, you tried to string together a 5 or 6 game parlay, and then you probably got kicked in the nuts.
Just when we think we have it all figured out. It's mid-November. We think we have all these teams dialed in, and then nothing makes sense anymore, but it's okay. We're going to start off with kind of overarching thoughts from the Thursday game now that we've had time to kind of go through the film. And we were, giving live reactions and everything as things happened on Thursday, and trying to make a very unpalatable game as palatable as we possibly could for all of you. But now that almost a week has passed and we're looking at this from the top down, I think the big discussion that comes away from it is, with the Falcons still in striking distance to make a playoff run here, is it time to turn to Desmond Ridder? I tend to lean towards yes, because at this point, the one thing that we thought we could trust Marcus Mariota to do, which is protect the football, he's not doing that. So kind of what do you have to lose? That's my argument for it. If you're going to turn it over, at least turn it over with the kid and see what he's got,
This feels disingenuous, though. I agree with you to start. In short, yes, we should see Ridder now, soon, whatever, but literally, Marcus Mariota is the only guy that hit on your slip. Now we're cutting his knees out from under him and saying, you don't get to start anymore.
Hold on. When it's over 13 and a half completions, you know how easy that should be to get? And we were still sweating it out? So
right. You had to get into garbage time. No, in all seriousness, slip aside. We had this discussion a little bit during the game. A bunch of other analysts have had this discussion since, which is, okay, it feels like you're not really winning anyways. It's now time to see what you invested. When you talk about Ridder, one of his greatest strengths was his maturity and his experience. So he's had some time sitting behind a very good mentor in Marcus Mariota. Let's take a look so that Arthur Smith and the Falcons understand what they truly have on the field as opposed to in the QB room or the film room or anything else, and see if he can deliver in the field, or If he can't, it leaves you with a very large question for next year. Are you just going to, think he's going to take the jump next year? Because it does take a while. It's not a 6 or 7 game stretch sort of tells all. But if you don't put him out there, you don't have any real-time film other than the preseason to say, oh, we're going to stake our entire next season on presumably this guy.
And, I mean, you never really know what a quarterback class is going to be. And how many times are we seeing, guys that went in the second round or the third round end up being, really damn good once they're surrounded by a supporting cast. And so I don't necessarily think it's implausible. A lot of Falcons fans are like, we got to do whatever we can to get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or, really lean into a tank and go for like Caleb Williams or May the next year. You never really know. And so I think if they give Ritter a shot, and I mean, they've invested in weapons. They got London, they got Pitts. Cordell Patterson is still a top tier weapon on the backside of 30 at running back / receiver. Like, they got some pieces there. And the defense ain't half bad either when they're healthy. Keyword, when they're healthy. I would at least like to see what he's got with a semi-decent supporting cast, because sometimes that's literally all you need in the NFL. And we're going to talk about some other quarterbacks that got improvements in their supporting cast and suddenly look like pretty good quarterbacks in the league. So, like, that is a big factor here. But we're not going to know unless he's on the field. Like, if he completely shits the bed, yeah, fine, sure, go after somebody in the draft or free agency or something like that. But we're never really going to know until he's out there and it's live bullets. And this was honestly kind of a year that nobody really expected anything from them anyway. So what do you really have to, like, if you're going to, cost yourself a 6 seed or a 7 seed or something like that, do you really care? Like, do you think you're going to win a Super Bowl this year anyway? Like, see what the kid's got, because at least then you'll have some kind of clarity going into the draft, which I think from a long-term, organizational health standpoint, getting clarity, I think, should be priority number one, not trying to make a Super Bowl run with Marcus Mariota that you probably won't win anyway.
Yeah, similar situation to what we've been saying about Justin Fields from the offseason, which was the most important thing in Chicago this year is Justin Fields the guy? Like, you need to figure it out 100%, because if he's not, you got to go another direction. If he is, great, you got to figure out what he needs to be even more successful, like the other guys we talked about. And the only way to do that, I can't stress it enough, is on the field, because a guy can look great in shell drills. A guy can look great in the film room. He can take studious notes, which, Ritter does all of those things. The NFL is the NFL for a reason. It is the top football league on the planet. It's got a lot of defensive coordinators who want to mess with you in exotic ways, in ways that you did not see at Cincinnati if you're Desmond Ritter. And you have to react to those things. You got to, make some bad picks. You got to get burned. You got to do all those things so that you can sort of get those out of the way and then see how you react. Do you bounce back? Are you able to lead another drive? Can you come back the next week and not make the same mistake twice? All that stuff happens on the field only, and you can talk all you want about how good you're going to be at it. There's a lot of guys that haven't been able to translate that to between the white lines.
And I think, honestly, if Ritter was in for that game, if they brought him in the second half like I thought we should, and he provided a spark, to make it completely about myself, which, of course, I never do, I think my slip actually would have been okay. Because I wasn't that far off. I needed only one more field goal from Younghoe Koo. I needed like 6 more receiving yards from Cordell Patterson. I needed a few more completions from Phillip Walker. Like, I could have made this slip work if they just wouldn't keep beating this dead horse with Mariota when you're already behind and losing terribly, and the fucking Panthers are running all over you, and we can't make a switch here. So selfishly, I would have liked to see it, because then, maybe I would have made $20 off of it. But, from a Falcons fan perspective, for my own mental health, I would like to see it.
I could have been a contender.
Also, side note, by the way, another narrative from that Thursday game, which we didn't write down pre-show, but I want to bring it up. Deontay Foreman, they're running the hell out of the ball, and they got a whole bunch of picks for Christian McCaffrey. I think they made the right move. And this is nothing against Christian McCaffrey, but like he was getting in the Sunday night game last night, he was still getting outproduced by Eli Mitchell because Eli Mitchell's also really good. And the Niners gave up a whole bunch of picks for him to be a second running back on the team, while D'Onta Foreman is statistically outproducing even what McCaffrey was giving them on the ground. It has nothing to do with talent level or versatility or anything like that. Running back is a very fungible position, and we're seeing D'Onta Foreman succeed and the team get a bunch of picks, while the team that traded for CMC, A, isn't even giving him a full workload because that's not how they operate, and B, he's not even been the most productive running back on the team once Eli Mitchell came back, and you got Debo getting carries too. So I kind of think Carolina won the trade. Just saying.
And what round was Eli Mitchell picked in?
Like the 5th or the 6th last year, something like that.
Yeah, this is the thing. It falls very cleanly within our discussion about running backs that we've had on a larger scale, and we'll have again as we approach the draft, with even more narrative around it, even more examples to bring to the table. You and I were talking pre-show about Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery. David Montgomery needing to be re-signed by someone, and whether or not that should be Chicago. My answer is no, because Khalil Herbert is producing at a very high level. Again, was a lower round draft pick, and you can get these guys every year, the D'Onta Foremans, and lower round picks even, and undrafted free agents. We see them produce regularly across the NFL. So it's not that CMC is not a good football player. He is a very good football player. He has his issues with health, but when you can get that, and you can get the production that you're getting out of somebody like D'Onta Foreman behind a sort of revitalized line that is now running with power. We talked about this all Thursday long, that they are pushing the ball, and D'Onta Foreman is a perfect match for a team that's pushing the ball. He is a power runner, loves to put weight behind his pads and run people over. You have this synergy. You're getting the same or possibly even a greater effect for less cost, and you got assets in. That's the way you do running back in the NFL. You do not go out and spend first-round picks on them. You know, you can if you're at the tail end of the first round and you think the guy is really special, but I'm still going to question you because you could get two more guys in the 3rd and the 6th or the 5th and UDFA who, if you align them correctly, if you scout them correctly, are going to give you very similar production for a much, much reduced cost.
It is purely a position that is a finishing piece. It is the last little accent that you put on there, where if you really, really need one. And the only benefit to taking one in the first round, again, as a finishing piece, is because you get the 5 years of contract control. Technically 6 if you include the franchise tag. So you get like literally their entire prime under a semi-deflated market value, technically. Like, not really, but technically. Like, I would still rather have somebody who's as dirt cheap as a 4th rounder, but you could still get the 6 years of control. That's pretty much the only argument for it. Other than that, there honestly isn't. So Carolina won the trade so far. If the Niners win the Super Bowl, I don't think they're going to give a shit. But, you know, so far, Carolina's won the trade. They're running the hell out of the ball. Their defense played well. They're very good against the run. And I think you can win like this. Are they going to make the playoffs? Again, probably not. There's one guy who bet $80,000 that they wouldn't, that is really sweating it out right now. So they're probably not going to make it. But at this point, I can't definitively say that they won't, because they are playing really well right now. So they definitely busted my slip. I still won overall on the night because I did the second half slip where I hit on that one. So I still won like $40 overall on the night, because thank God you could do second half slips on Prize Picks. But the first half one I bungled pretty good. If you guys want to come back for this Thursday stream, it's Titans-Packers, which is a really intriguing matchup, especially after this Sunday's games. Ultra interesting. Might be one of the most interesting Thursday matchups of the entire season. So come on by here for our live stream that starts half hour before kickoff. We go all the way through the game, doing live analysis and such like that. Is such like that even a phrase? I don't even think it is.
I love and such like that because it's a big envelope and we tend to fill it up on Thursday. So
There's a lot that goes on. So come by on Thursday for that. We're going to fill out more slips for Packers Titans, which has a whole bunch of matchups that I'm going to be digging into later in this show. And if you want to tail those slips, or if you think that I'm a curse upon your house, you can go against the slip and completely fade it. Use promo code Bootleg. They'll match your deposit for any deposit up to $100. It could be $10. It could be $100, whatever you want to do. They'll match it. And that's a big help to the show if you do that, because they're our title sponsor and they love when you guys do that. And they might come back if you keep doing that. So we appreciate everybody who already has. All right, EJ. With all that being said, thank you to Prize Fix for sponsoring this show. Let's get to 3 Up. 3 Up, number 1, EJ. How could we not start with this? Vikings, Bills, possibly the game of the year. I swear to God, every time the Bills play a game, we think it's the game of the year because they can't stop playing in these types of games. But here we are again, Bills game of the year. And this one, even by Bills bullshittery standards, was special because the weird kind of like Bills chaos energy collided with the even weirder Vikings chaos energy and combined to make a superstorm of weirdness. And we're talking the Vikings were down by multiple possessions and it's 4th and 18 and we're hucking up to Justin Jefferson and he's making, I'm not even kidding, one of the 3 greatest catches in NFL history. I think it even outdid the Odell one in terms of like difficulty level, one hand ripping it out of a DB, somehow maintaining control, and it's 4th and 18 and you're down, there's less than 2 minutes to go and you're driving and it sets up a win. Like, that catch had everything. Jefferson himself, 10 catches for $193 and a touchdown. But then you've got, the Dalvin drop, just outside the goal line. And then there's a penalty, so they try to sneak it and they don't make it. And then the fumbled snap happens and the Vikings get it back on top. And then Josh is driving and he throws a pick. Like, the last 2 minutes of that game in itself was a whole game's worth of chaos. And there was still 58 other minutes of craziness. And for me personally, I loved it as a third-party observer. Bills fans and Vikings fans never want to see each other again because they can't handle that kind of stress. I had nothing riding on that game, and I could barely handle the stress. It was phenomenal, but it was nuts. It took years off my life, and I really hope we get a Super Bowl like that because, oh my God, these teams cannot stop playing the stupidest, weirdest, most entertaining games of the year.
It really brings into clear focus that the margin of victory in the NFL is razor thin. Every week we have multiple games going down to, hey, it's a 3-point game. There's 2 minutes left. Game we're going to talk about next, Seahawks and Bucks. Like, that game too, looked like it was out of hand, and here comes one team charging back, and suddenly the last 3 or 4 minutes really matter. One team makes a mistake, the other team makes a mistake. Okay, who really wants it? And they stack crazy, crazy plays. That Justin Jefferson catch, I'm with you. One of my top 3 of all time. Unreal. You can watch it 10 times and go, he's never going to catch it, knowing that he catches it and think you're right every time. So that's really silly. But on top of that razor thin margin in each game, all those games stack up for divisional games and divisional lead. And we highlighted last week that the Bills' road to divisional supremacy was a tightrope. That as good as they are and as strong as they've played, that with the improvement in the AFC East and the way playoff spots work within your division, their hold was in no way a stranglehold. In fact, it was sort of hanging onto the windowsill with your fingers, and that took all of 1 week to manifest itself. The Bills, who from the preseason have been Super Bowl favorites, including us, just about every outlet out there, and now the Dolphins lead the division at 7-3. The Jets are second, thanks to their head-to-head win, which we talked about last week, and the Bills are third.
They're fighting for a 6 or 7 seed now.
Yeah, they are. We are fully wild carding. That is a new verb, and it is the last verb that anybody in the city that we just traveled to, Buffalo, wants to hear on a Monday morning. That the Bills are shooting for a wild card right now. That is a huge tumble. It's not. It's literally the difference between one game, right? But it is a huge tumble in the division and for playoff seedings, and that has a massive sort of rollout wave effect on the entire picture in the AFC, everything else. And this is how narrow the margins are in the NFL game to game, week to week, within a division, within a conference. And it's why it makes it fascinating and entertaining to watch.
I think that considering what we saw from Christian Watson this past Sunday, which we will get to him, by the way, if he didn't get hurt on the first play of the game that we watched against the Packers in Buffalo, like if what they had planned for him in that game, which they said they had plans for him in that game, if what they had planned for him in that game was what happened this week, we could have been staring down the barrel of 3 straight Bills losses, which I thought was unconscionable going into September, especially after we saw them live in LA in week 1, where we're like, oh my God, are they even going to lose a game this year? Like, there's very real concern. And I can't even consider the Browns a get-right game because the Browns have a lot of talent themselves. I know they just got rolled by Miami, but, like, I'm sorry. Nick Chubb can take over any game anywhere at the drop of a hat if they're not careful here. So I'm not out on the Bills, but they're in a lot more precarious position than I thought they could be. And this pains me to say it, a big reason for that is Josh Allen. The turnovers have got to stop. And it's not just turnovers, it's dumb turnovers. Like inexplicable interceptions. It's happened literally the last 3 games in a row. Like just the stupidest, like 2018, 2019 Josh Allen type picks. And they were gone for 2 years. Yeah. And all of a sudden they showed up again and he's pressing and he's not seeing the field well. And I don't get it. But as long as he keeps turning the ball over, like you can lose to anyone. You can lose to anyone in this league if you're throwing 2 really bad picks a game. You're basically spotting them points. So if he keeps doing that against Cleveland, like, yeah, they're going to lose. And if he does it against Detroit, guess what? They're going to lose. He's got to stop throwing these picks or all of a sudden it's not going to be, oh, we're fighting for the division. It's we're fighting for the 7 seed. And that's the Bills.
This is a huge test for Ken Dorsey because the common element that is now gone is Brian Daboll. And I know Dorsey and Daboll worked very closely together with Josh to build that offensive success around Josh that we've seen for the last 2 years. And don't think that he hasn't tried to slip into these old habits, but Daboll was able to have that stable hand, however he did it, and guide Josh back to, hey, you threw a bad one, don't throw another bad one, right? Hey, that's a pick you would have thrown 2 years ago. Here's what you need to look at, refocus on this. And Josh stayed out of that trough, right? He's slid back into those bad habits. We started talking about it 3 weeks ago, and we were like, oh, these were the picks that he definitely was not throwing at the beginning of the year, which is why when we saw them in SoFi, we were like, they look unstoppable because he's eliminated the bad Josh part from his game. And without that, he's just an 18-wheeler that can throw 80-yard bombs. Good luck, right? That's all that's left. So you're going to lose. And the only thing really that can kind of beat Josh Allen at the height of his powers is Josh Allen at the height of his powers, right? When he is making bad decisions. And he started making bad decisions, really bad decisions, grievously bad decisions in the red zone and throwing those lousy picks. And Dorsey hasn't been able to kind of go up and grab the handlebars of his bike and pull him out of the rut and go, we need to get back over here. And he needs to. Because if he can't, they are in a very slim position, elbow injury notwithstanding. You just can't make bad decisions like that, especially not down in the red zone because it becomes this big plus-minus swing. If they push down and get points and you gave up points, it's not just 3 points for them. It's the difference between the 7 you were going to get and the 3 for that's a 10-point swing. We've talked about how tight these games are. You can't keep making those mistakes, and he's made them weeks and weeks and weeks in a row now. And it's super duper concerning. I know Bills fans are concerned about it. Ken Dorsey has to right the ship here. He has to right Josh Allen's ship and get him back to where those decisions are. Live to fight another day. Don't force it, in short. Now, it's easy for me to say, obviously tougher to do on an NFL football field, but if they don't, their chances are going to continue to decline, and that pains me to death because this is a wildly talented team that has a very bright future, and they gotta do what all good teams do, which is fight through this adversity, figure out how to get back to their winning ways that they had very strongly for the first month and a half. And if they don't, they're going to fade, and it's going to be one of the all-time bad fades.
And they especially can't afford to make those mistakes against the Vikings, which, under Kevin O'Connell, have done a tremendous job at winning one-score games. You know, one of the overlooked stats, I think, so far is that the Vikings and Raiders have been in the exact same amount of one-score games this year. The Vikings win all of them. The Raiders lose all of them. Because the Vikings can hold their water and they can make a play when they absolutely need to, and the Raiders can't. And so you can't crack the door open against Minnesota because, let's be honest, Kirk and Jefferson and those pass rushers and Dalvin, if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And they took 2 miles in this game. Like, they were dead. They were gone. They were buried. And then they got the ball back, and that was it. That's all they needed. Now, all that being said, 3-up number 2. This was the game before that Vikings-Bills game that led into it, which was equally entertaining for a few different reasons. It wasn't as chaotic, but definitely as entertaining. Seahawks-Bucks from Germany. And one of the reasons why I love that game so much had nothing to do with the game itself and what was happening on the field. The German fans brought it. They have been begging for a game for so long. It's the second most popular sport in Germany. You go to the England games and you look at the stands, it's full of Germans. Like, they come over in droves for any game that's even relatively accessible for them. So they have been begging for a game in Germany. They got one. They showed up. The energy was incredible. Like, that was the loudest I have ever heard Country Roads sang ever, and it was not in Morgantown. It was in Munich. Like, that was incredible energy, and I really can't wait to go next year. I will move heaven and earth to make that happen because I need to see a game with those people.
It was a huge win for Germany. It doesn't matter who won. I realize if you're a Bucs fan or Hawks fan, you think it matters very much who won. This needed to be a win for the NFL. Germany provided it all week long. The lead up with all the media felt a little Super Bowl like it was Super Bowl light. Tremendous energy outside the stadium, inside the stadium, loud. The Seahawks chants were rocking. Reporters who are at regular NFL games every week were like, man, this place is loud. And I'm really happy for Germany and the league. The league needed this to work. It's the first regular season game ever in Germany. And the German fans got a good one. They got to see the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, play. Other big players throughout the game made big plays a lot of times. Sometimes in the London games, we've seen, maybe they're hurt or maybe they just don't score a touchdown. Like, they got to see Lockett score a touchdown trying to come charging back. There's a huge Seahawks contingent within Germany, and they got a great game. Like, they got a great game experience. They got a great game on the field. The product was all there. Like, Roger Goodell was in the stands. He had to be just smiling ear to ear because Germany is a massive market already. This is not some developing market. This is probably one of the most misunderstood things about the German NFL market is people think, oh, it's building. It's not building. It's there. It is full of rabid fans. For this show, our fourth largest market since we started, since the first day we ever put out any content, is Germany. Has been. Easily. Like, strongly. Patrons. Folks in the comments. Folks staying up in the middle of the night watching the draft live stream. The whole thing. Like, this is a country that is absolutely consumed with the NFL right now, and they got a gem of a game in one of their country's best stadiums. I couldn't be happier sort of for all sides, and hell yes, I want to be in Germany next year when they play.
In terms of what happened on the field, my biggest takeaway is Rachaad White is here, and he should be the new Bucs RB1. Nothing against Lenny, but Rachaad White is more explosive. He still makes plays in the receiving game. He's making, it's hard to say making plays in pass pro, but he does.
It's true.
He does handle his business in pass protection. He runs inside, he runs outside. Like, he's a very versatile running back. And we said that when he was coming out of ASU. He was one of my, my top 3 down backs, not just a role player, but somebody you could have in any situation in the game. He was one of my top 3 down backs in this class. And I kind of think that this was the game that put the exclamation mark on, if we're going to do a 1A, 1B type situation, he should be the 1A, Lenny should be the 1B, especially since Lenny's got a hip injury now. Like, I'm not going to give an injured Leonard Fournette carries over Rachaad White when Rachaad White has done nothing for the last month but prove that he's ready. So I kind of think that that's where we're at. The Bucs run game has been much maligned. I kind of want to give him a shot at full-time duty to see if he can bring it back, because 22 for a $105 and a game-sealing, bone-shattering stiff arm of the century on Quandre Diggs, that told me he's ready to be the guy, and he should be the guy.
Don't disagree at all. The young stars for the Bucs on offense, Rachaad White, this was his day to shine. Cade Otton's been playing very, very well over the last month, but really over the last 2 weeks has made his presence known as what I think is the Bucs' best tight end. And I know they have Cameron Brate. I would still be starting Cade Otton over him. So these guys are powering along, but specifically with Rachaad White, and this is going to sound so weird, it allowed the Bucs to take the ball out of Tom Brady's hands.
Yes.
Tom Brady has been throwing a lot, and it hasn't been working, right? It's not Brady's fault or the receiver's fault. Overall, the offense was not able to win games. Brady was back to being deadly efficient. He had 22 completions in this game. He threw less than 30 times, which he hasn't done in many games, and it allowed them to keep moving the chains, moving the sticks, having explosive plays in the run game, setting up the Seahawks to where they had to account for that run game, and then Brady was just surgical. He was unafraid of the Seahawks rookie corners, and I had this thought early in the game. It was on very early in the morning, and I thought, oh, maybe that's just my sleep-addled brain, but I went back and looked at who the Seahawks had played. They haven't run into any quarterbacks that have anywhere near the confidence of Tom Brady, and Tom was not afraid of Tariq Woolen. He threw right at him. He was not afraid of Kobe Bryant. He burned him multiple times.
They even threw at Tariq Woolen with Tom Brady.
Yeah. He had a great comment about that if he hadn't fallen down, he would have mossed a guy and gone for a touchdown.
Okay,
oh,
Tom.
sure.
Yeah.
But to say that the Bucs won by limiting Tom Brady's attempts in the passing game sounds weird, but it is 100% what happened. It let this offense be balanced, and Brady did the rest. He looked very, very sharp, and really Tariq and Kobe, they're going to be great players, but this was their real welcome to the NFL moment of, oh God, this guy is completely unafraid when I'm in good coverage of whipping it right at me, and I'm still going to have to make a play. And Tom didn't let him do that. Bucs come away with a win overall. Seahawks with a furious comeback. This game looked out of hand by a couple of scores, and Seahawks churned right back in and again made it a game with just a few minutes to go. Really cool that, again, Germany got to see that, but it was a quality product, and it was resilient by, Gino and crew to say, we're not just going to bend to the former Super Bowl champs. We're going to give them a game, and it was just fun football all the way around.
I think there's a couple throws Tom made against Tariq and Kobe where you saw them look around like, wait, you can do that? Like, I was there. I was in position. You can just deliver the ball, hand deliver it right there over the shoulder. Okay, sure. That's
Tom
fair.
Tom back there waving, don't care.
Yeah.
Nice try, Rook.
Oh, man. It was fun. It was a great game. Gino made plays. White made plays. Brady made plays.
Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker.
Like the entire drive to get them down for the touchdown that sort of started the comeback was like throw to Kenneth Walker, throw to Kenneth Walker, throw to Kenneth Walker, and he just kept producing yards. I was like, well, eventually they're going to cover him.
They couldn't
they?
run. They couldn't. This was honestly one of the best games for the Bucs run defense the entire year. So they got to get him the ball somehow.
That was the quiet one. Is we can talk everything we want about Brady and the balance of the offense, Rachaad White and Cade Otton. Bucs run defense, which has been getting gashed, came back, and White made plays. We've been hard on White's case at linebacker, and he made
Devin
plays.
White, not Rachaad White, to be specific.
Yeah. And he deserves credit. But, again, when you're playing good run defense, it's a team effort, and the Bucs have not been able to get on the same page with run defense, and they squashed a very prolific run game from the Seahawks and limited that effectiveness. And honestly, that's as much a factor as anything we talked about on offense.
Going from this game to 3-up number 3, which is another older quarterback that was tired of putting up with our shit, Aaron Rodgers. Also having a little bit of a mini bounce back. Actually, not even mini bounce back. Big bounce back.
Big bounce back.
This week. Nobody gave them a shot. No, even we didn't give them a shot. We're like, I don't know, that pass rush, that defense, Dak's here. Like, I know, Pollard, if he's getting more involved, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, even though Zeke's hurt, like, they're going to run over him. They're going to throw over him. They're going to beat the shit out of Rodgers with the pass rush. Like, I from a pure matchup standpoint, there was no way they had a shot. And then they lined up. And Rodgers came out and said, I ain't dead yet, fuckers. I got this new kid, Christian Watson, over there, number 9. He's dropped 2 balls in a row, my first 2 throws. I get it, but he's going to get you back. And oh my God, he got them back. I went, because I watched the game live on broadcast, but as soon as I could get the All-22, I went back. So I was like, I need to see what happened. Like, were these manufactured touchdowns? Was he just winning? This kid wasn't just winning. Okay, he was killing the entire Cowboys secondary. And I think this coming out party was very real, and he gives them an element that they literally did not have until this week, which was a big play threat that if you line up in man coverage, he will score on you. Like, immediately, he will score on you. That first touchdown, it was interesting. The Cowboys DB was aligned head up, which that wide of a split, you're not used to seeing a corner that is not inside leverage, because typically the corner wants to take away anything inside, push you to the boundary. The corner, I think, did not respect Christian Watson at all. Nope. So he was lined head up because he's like, I know you're going to go outside. I'm just going to stack on top of you, play chest to chest. And I'm going to take away your ability to stack me on the outside. And Watson's like, oh, okay. I'm gonna do my best Devontae Adams impersonation, and if you give me an inside release towards your post safety because you think you're gonna get help, you're not gonna get help, buddy. And so he kind of like did a little shimmy, kind of almost like he was about to release outside, and then just went right around him inside and stacked him so fucking quick, like his head snapped around. And once he got on top, again, that kid, he's 6'4", runs 4.3. And Rodgers, he's like, okay, he's dropped the first 2. I'm going to give him another one because what else do I got to lose? And he laid up this moon ball, and Watson just like Willie Maysed it for a score. And that was the turning point in the game. That was the turning point in the game because not only did it let Rodgers know that can work, it let Watson know, like, I can make plays. These are the Dallas Cowboys. It's nighttime at Lambeau Field, and I can make plays. And so then Rodgers came back to him again and again and again. 3rd and 2. Hey, kid, I need you to read this zone coverage properly and slow up in the exact spot. I need you to slow up and move these chains. 4th and 7. Hey, kid, we're calling middle read. I need you to win on this release and read the safety correctly and get to the right spot. And he did. He scored on it. Hey, kid, it's down in the low red zone. It's 3rd down. You got 2 DBs leveraged inside of you. I need you to still win inside anyway on this shallow and just roast him with your speed. And he did. Time after time after time, Aaron looked at this kid and said, I need you to be the guy and make the play. You are my new Jordy. You are my new Devontae. I need you. And he did it. And that scares the shit out of me because that was what they were missing. And now they have it. Sky's the limit. Like this, the Packers were broken 2 weeks ago. That I think fixed it. And that's not an exaggeration. I think they fixed it.
It's the thing they have not had. The one thing that they have not had. They gave up everybody literally in one offseason. Like Devontae's gone. They got some of those plays from MVS. They got some of those plays from Equinemius St. Brown. All those guys are gone. And they had guys that could win underneath. Lazard can win some contested catches down the boundary, but he's not that guy. He's not just going to flat run away from a middle safety. And they've been looking. They drafted Dubs. Dubs gave them some of it. Watson has been much maligned. We were high on Watson, and again, this is a reminder to everyone. Not everybody progresses when you're an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kid at the same rate, right? Watson had trouble staying healthy. He dropped some balls in the preseason. He dropped some balls in the regular season, and everybody said, he sucks. It's over. We wasted all the picks we used to go get him. It's the 10th game of his career. It's the 10th game of his career, and he broke out and
not
the
even.
Dallas Cowboys.
He's been hurt. It's not even the 10th
No,
game.
I mean, it's the 10th possible game of his career, right?
Yeah.
If he'd been healthy for all of them. In terms of playing them, you're right. He hasn't been on the field for all of them. He came out in the 10th possible game of his career and beat the Dallas Cowboys. Like, he beat the Dallas Cowboys. And it changed a team that was spiraling and looking really bad. Just ask Packers fans what they felt last week as opposed to what they feel this week. And they needed that element to go get a chunk play, big chunk play, possibly a score. And it's lightning in a bottle, which is why we were so excited about him. Yes, he had a high drop rate in college. Yes, he did not come from a passing offense, but you could see it. Just like you could see the basketball skills with Drake London. Christian Watson was tall and explosive, and if you went single coverage, one-on-one, most people can't handle him on the outside because he's just too big and too fast. Now, if he doesn't catch it, that doesn't make a hill of beans of difference, but Rodgers finally, I think, was reduced to nobody else in this wide receiver room can do what you can do. Can you do it? Because I'll stomach a couple drops from a rookie, which is not a Rodgers trait. Usually he's going to put that guy in the doghouse and never bring him back. There's nobody else to bring out behind him. So he was like, man, kid, catch one, right? Catch one 60-yarder, go for a touchdown. Like, let me keep chucking you these. And he can, and he kept winning. And it does change who the Packers are on the football field because they didn't have that element. They've counted on that element for years. They've gotten it from many of the guys you've named as you go back through time. They've always had that element, and Rodgers definitely has that arm. But it was basically bottled up because he couldn't throw it to anybody. Watson finally gets healthy, gets back on the field, fights through a couple of drops, finally cracks it open and makes some big plays. And Rodgers is like, okay, let's go. Like, I'll just keep chucking it to you and we'll see what happens. And what happens is Cowboys had this game in hand easily. Let's not forget. They marched into Lambeau Field. They're the heavy favorites. 13:23 to go in the fourth quarter. They had a 96.2 win probability percentage.
I didn't know it was that bad. Oh, my God.
13 minutes left. 96. That is locked down. We talked about how thin the margins are, but 100 things have to happen for the Packers correctly within the next 13 minutes for them to win this game. They are on life support at that point. The wheels came off, which, quite frankly, and this is not a shot, is not an uncommon thing for a McCarthy coach team in Lambeau. Like, that's why he eventually got run out of Green Bay. But the stars on the Cowboys, not happy. Micah, strangely, had his fewest rushes of the season as an edge rusher, dropped into coverage much more than he has throughout the entire season. He only had one pressure. Talking about Micah Parsons, a guy that people are comparing favorably to LT. And I'm not talking about LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm talking about Lawrence frickin' Taylor. Like, that is the highest praise you can give an edge rusher in the NFL. And you only rush him like 10 times, and he gets one pressure, and you drop him into coverage like 5 times more than that. It's crazy. He was not happy after the game, made comments to that effect. Dak sat at his locker with his head down and a quote-unquote vacant stare after the game. These guys are not pleased that they had it. They had it, and it's really tough in the NFL mentally and in the standings. If you let winnable games get away from you, whether or not you were supposed to win them, if you're on top and have a 90-plus winning percentage going in through the fourth quarter and you let it slip away, those games are really hard to get back, right? You can beat the people you're supposed to on your schedule, but this, at least when this one's penciled in at the beginning of the year, this was an even matchup. This was let's see who wants it. The Cowboys had it on the road against a very wounded Packers team. And they blew it. Yeah. They just blew it. And that is going to sting more than usual.
And it wasn't just, the Cowboys making mistakes. Like, this was one of the most complete games the Packers overall have played. Like, Aaron Jones got 24 carries for $140 and a touchdown. Like, Aaron Jones never gets 24 carries. We begged them to give him 24 carries, and they did it, not even as a complimentary piece to Watson, but as like the main dish, and Watson was the beautiful, tasty side dish. He was the potatoes. Aaron Jones was the beef, and it worked. And Aaron Rodgers had a few vintage Aaron Rodgers throws, which is kind of all you need to do when your run game is working that well. And the defense is hit or miss. Like, run defense again has been a problem for them. It's been a problem for them all year, but the pass defense was still good. They got a couple key interceptions, on Dak, one of which was in the end zone. There was a couple odd kind of miscommunications between Dak and his receivers, which you would think with how long they've been together and in the same offense, that wouldn't happen, but it did. And maybe that speaks to McCarthy still, that his guys just can't get on the same page sometimes when they really need to. But like, overall, very complete performance from the Packers. They ran the ball. They threw the ball. They played good defense-ish, mostly. Somewhat. By their standards, they played good defense. And they beat the big bad Cowboys. And once again, Aaron Rodgers, something about him against Dallas. They just, doesn't matter how bad the Packers are, they just can't beat him. And, I think we might, now that this formula has been unlocked, wouldn't be surprised if the Packers go on a little bit of a run here and we see this same exact matchup again in January. Because, 6-loss Packers, I'm not exactly ruling them out. They're only a couple games out of being 500. And once you're 500 going into December, anybody's ball game, So I don't know. Packers aren't dead yet. That's my main takeaway.
I'm with you. And it's very scary that they needed something to be unlocked. They've slowly been grinding down in terms of just that hopelessness of this is not going to turn around. And it's more than a spark. It's already like a small forest fire. And if it gets a little bit of wind in the next couple of weeks, yeah, they could push with that ability. If Watson stays healthy and they can score when they want to, not a team I'd want to play down the stretch.
Today's episode is brought to you by Trade Coffee, and if you watch the video version of this show, you probably noticed that I drink about 8 or 9 cups every single day, because between running multiple YouTube channels and a podcast, my workdays are obnoxiously long. And because I go through so much coffee, I tend to get bored with my normal store-bought coffee pretty quickly, which in comes Trade. They're a coffee subscription service that sends both me and EJ freshly roasted coffee from small independent roasters all over the country, and they send it to us on our schedule so that we never run out. There are hundreds upon hundreds of coffees to choose from on Trade, and we actually worked with Trade to create a whole bootleg collection of coffees with about 50 different options, all from independent roasters in the United States. And keep in mind, by the way, my tastes are probably very different than most of you because I'm a sucker for dark roast, and I know a lot of people don't like that, but I happen to love it. And if you don't like what you're looking at within our collection, there's still another 400 options on the site for you to browse through, and you can find what you actually are looking for and stuff you do actually like. And if you don't love your first bag, they'll even work with you to replace it with something else for free. So if you want to support small businesses and brew, honestly, the best cup of coffee you're ever going to make at home, right now, Trade Coffee is offering our listeners a total of $30 off your first order, plus free shipping at drinktrade.com/bootleg. Again, that is drinktrade.com/bootleg for $30 off your subscription to the best coffees you're ever going to have. Thank you again to Trade for sponsoring, and with that, let's get back to the show. All right, let's get to 3 down. Three down this week are all AFC West teams. It's kind of a bootleg humble pie AFC West edition. And so we're going to kind of go one after another with the 3 non-functional AFC West teams. By the way, the Chiefs are very functional. They're fine. They're off in their own, doing their own thing, making runs for first seed again. They're okay. The rest of the division, not so much. So first up, Denver Broncos for 3 down, number 1. Another week, another really awful offensive performance. Russ had a really bad pick at the end on 4th down where he sailed it over Sutton, and he was getting hit as he threw it, but that situation should not have even been there in the first place, because if you go back to the 3rd down, which was 3rd and 4, it was a Rashad Weaver sack. Like, it's a clear man coverage tell before the snap. You've got the, to the boundary side, you've got the rub route wide open. If you just executed the offense like you're supposed to and threw the rub, you would have got a fresh set of downs in the middle of the red zone with like 35 seconds left, plenty of time to score, and maybe do something here. And he missed the read, and he held the ball, and Weaver strip sacked him, which then made it like 4th and 13.
A billion,
But he had 2 other almost picks earlier in this game where, like, to me, beyond just the decision making, the velocity isn't there anymore. Like, his ability to put the ball in a spot and leading his receiver both laterally and vertically. He's not leading receivers anymore. He's kind of just throwing it up and hoping that they just go make a play rather than helping them create space to make a play. Like, he almost got picked off in the end zone because he left the ball 6 yards short. There was another one he almost got picked off because he kind of shook off a pressure and then just like threw it 10 yards shorter than he should have and didn't lead his receiver laterally. So I don't know. It's just Russ is not playing well. Actually, I can't even describe it as that. Russ is playing like shit. It's even worse than not playing well. He's just playing like shit. And if you go up against a Titans defense where you've got 2 guys getting double-digit pressures into Nico Autry and Rashad Weaver, and you're playing like shit, and the few times you can actually get the ball down the field, you're missing that badly, it's no wonder they can't score. Like, they can't pass protect, they can't throw, they can't run, they can't do anything. It's miserable right now.
And this was the whole problem that they aligned their offseason, their entire offseason strategy. Everything they did was aimed at solving this problem, right? They hired Nathaniel Hackett as an offensive head coach. They went out and paid a boatload for Russ to be the trigger man for the offense that we've been waiting to see unleashed. And like, they're not getting it right now. To the point that this stat came up yesterday. It's from Ryan Koenigsberg. If the Broncos had scored exactly 18 points in regulation of every game, they would be 8-1.
Like, if
they had scored 18 points in regular time every game this season, they would be 8-1.
That would be like 25th in the league. So they just need to be better than that to
18
be 8-1.
points. 18 points is really low in terms of points scored. We talked about it last week, how good the defense has been and how overshadowed their very good defensive performances have been by this just muddling offense that cannot get out of its own way. That is a combination between Hackett, Russ, and everybody else. Like, offense it's a team sport, and they can't get on the same page enough to score 18 points. Because if they had, with that defensive support, they'd be 8-1. I retweeted that yesterday, and somebody said, "So they're the Denver Bears?" I was like,
"No, not even close." The Bears offense,
not the Bears now, but that is a new phenomenon over the last 4 weeks. Typically, this is the situation we've seen over the years in Chicago. Good defense, offense that can't get out of its own way. Man, if they'd just been able to score 20, if they'd been able to score 14 a lot of times, the Bears would have won. Broncos need 18 points a game to be good enough to let their defense do their thing and win games, and they can't. They just can't. And I'm with you. It doesn't look like an easy fix. There isn't someone waiting in the wings that they can just bring in and say, hey, kind of like a Desmond Ridder, let's see what you've got, because this guy that we mortgaged our entire franchise for the next multiple years doesn't look like he's got it anymore, and he's making some really terrible decisions, and it's costing us ball games. There isn't a pivot at this point. They can't pivot. They are locked in with Russ, and if you're a Broncos fan, that is a monstrous concern.
I think it says something that if the Broncos had Kenny Pickett right now, not that Kenny Pickett has like lit the world on fire, but if they had Kenny Pickett right now, they probably would be 8-1, because he wouldn't be turning it over like Russ. He wouldn't be, missing really easy reads like Russ. Like, say what you want about Kenny Pickett, he's at least keeping his team in position to win games a lot, whereas Russ has been like an active detriment to their success, which if you told me that 3 months ago, I would have laughed in your face. And here we are. The NFL is a cruel mistress.
Very. And that's going to come up in the next team we talk about in the AFC West, the Raiders.
Oh, God.
Look, the Raiders are really banged up. We're going to talk about that. But they're just not a very good football team. Lots of teams that suffer injuries manage to find a way. The Raiders are finding a way only to lose, and that's rugged. They're 2-7. They're 0-5 on the road. They've lost their last 3 in a row. You want to talk about a slumping team. But here's the cruelty. This is fascinating and awful all at the same time. For the season, so total points for and points against for the season, they've scored 3 more points than the Chargers and allowed 2 less points than the Chargers overall for the entire season. And they have 3 fewer wins than that team.
See, that's what we were talking about earlier, man. These
It's
one-score games, like Minnesota wins them, the Raiders find a way to lose.
100%. When you said that, I was like, I wonder if he read that. But we're going to get to that. This is the cruelty of the Raiders. Is they could be. This is a very fine line. And we talked about that fine line to open the show. This is a very fine line. They could be a multiple win team. There are fairly easy ways that they could have won many of the games they've been in this season. But they won't do it. They can't do it. They are continuing. 0-5 on the road over their last 3. And again, where's the answer for this? Waller's on IR, Renfro's on IR. Like, Josh Jacobs has been very good throughout the year, but he can't do it by himself. Derek Carr broke down in his post-game presser yesterday. Started crying at the podium because he's just, it's weighing on him, man. Like, this is a tough place to be, to put in all the work and have that be the result. He said, this hurts, and it does. And if you're a Raiders fan, it really hurts. For us, it hurts a little bit because we spent all summer talking about the arms race in this division and how good they were going to be, and this is going to be the giant robot division, and they were just going to walk all over the NFL. And 3/4 of this division is slumping pretty heavily right now, and it is not a good look, and there aren't necessarily easy answers for at least 2 out of the 3 teams.
And you brought up Carr being emotional at the podium. Like, he's a big problem too. It's not like, everything around Carr is failing. Like, I was going through the All-22 late last night to prepare for this show. It's currently, 11 a.m. right now. And so 12 hours ago, I was going through the All-22. He was straight up not seeing the field. Early on in the game, I'm talking like the first 5 minutes of the game, they get 2 penalties in a row. So it's 1st and 25, which 2 penalties in a row. Classic Raiders, right? Put yourself in a hole before you even have a shot. They get a big post open against a busted coverage. Carr is literally sitting back there. No pressure. 1 second, 2 second, 3 second. And I'm like, Derek, throw the ball. Derek, throw the ball. Derek, throw the fucking ball. And then pressure came in on him, and it was wide open. I'm talking like easy 6 to Mac Hollins. And he just didn't see it, or wasn't looking, or I don't know where his eyes were. Just didn't see it. Next drive, 3rd and 6. They get a choice right out of the backfield. 22. I can't remember which running back that is. 22, just gives like a real nice shake at the top of the route, breaks inside, open by 4 yards, which who's open by 4 yards in the NFL against man coverage? Nobody, ever. And Derek just didn't see it. And so he tried to force a dig route again, got broken up, off the field. Punt, 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 punt. And I'm like, Derek, what are you looking at? And I'm not saying he's the only problem, but when you're having those issues on third downs where you're constantly getting run off the field with 3 and outs, and it's because the quarterback is not seeing the field, how do you not give him the primary blame? Like, yeah, we could talk about the defense completely blowing a run fit against Jonathan Taylor, where, at least to me, looking at it, like the linebacker definitely thought that Crosby was going to wrong shoulder the sift block coming back on inside zone. He thought Crosby was going to go inside, so he went outside. They both went outside. And then the nickel was like pressuring a crack, so he didn't fall back into the fit. There was literally nobody there. There was just a canyon with no Raiders there because they were all doing different shit and not fitting the run like they were supposed to. And so Taylor got like a 66-yarder. Like, yeah, we could talk about them screwing that up. We could talk about them not making tackles in space, like the DBs couldn't tackle at all. But even through all that, if Carr just saw the field and like saw Hollins running wide ass open, they still probably win the game. So probably. It's frustrating because I know, like, we love the leadership and we like Carr as a person. He's emotional at the podium and we know he cares. But it's not enough to just care. You got to play well, and he's not playing well. Like, it's not just a Josh McDaniels problem. It's an everything problem, which is probably worse.
Yes, it is worse because it's harder to fix. Mm-hmm. And speaking of things you can't fix, chargering. You cannot fix chargering. Chargering is a verb. We've used it before, and it is a real thing, and it is real again this year. And if you are a Los Angeles Chargers fan, you are feeling it. So yesterday I was lucky enough to go hang out with Alex Katzen, who writes for the Chargers Wire. We also know him as the man of spreadsheet myth and legend. We met him at the Senior Bowl a couple of years ago. And he posted this yesterday at the conclusion of the Chargers-San Francisco game. The Chargers were missing. Here's a list of the positions that they are missing. RB2, wide receiver 1, 2, and 4, tight end 1 and 2, left tackle 1, right tackle 1, defensive line 1, 4, and 5, edge 1 and 3, cornerback 1, kicker 1, and kicker 2. Kicker 2? Seriously? Come on, Chargers. Also, QB1, Justin Herbert, was injured both previously and again in the game. Linebacker 2 also missed time with an injury tonight. Wide receiver 3 has missed games already. Send help is what he says. And I don't know where you can get that much help in week 10 of the NFL season. The answer is you can't. Practice squads aren't that big. That is a massive amount of talent off the field with injuries, which is a annual freaking problem with the Chargers, and they cannot seem to get over it. Now, what they've done when that talent has been healthy and on the field is also an issue. And the coaching certainly needs to be looked at. I sort of go back and forth on whether Tom Telesco should be looked at as the GM because, man, there's a lot of talent in the Chargers organization. Like, the guys they have in those positions, there's a lot of really good players, but every single year, the Chargers just get ground up and spit out, and Herbert has to play hero ball to a bunch of people you've never heard of before, and it's like rinse, lather, repeat.
I don't necessarily think it's a Telesco problem. I don't even know if it's a medical staff problem. It's just weird freak stuff. Like Slater, I think it was a bicep. Mm-hmm. It's like, how it just happens. And I don't even know how. It just happens. But it happens to them a lot. a lot. And, Keenan's hamstrings are like legendarily finicky. Like, this is not the first year this has happened. No. Like, Keenan has always had soft tissue issues. I say that 5 times fast. Jesus Christ.
I can't.
But, this one, as he gets older, this one's just been especially bad. And honestly, at this point, I don't even know if we're going to see him at all this year. Like, I really don't. It's been like 8 weeks or something like that.
It doesn't feel like if we do, it'll be fully healthy at this point. Like he's going to be.
At this point,
he's
shut
just
him down until
through
January. If you make the playoffs, great. If not,
Yeah.
And Mike Williams, he's been out a couple weeks with an ankle. I don't know when he's coming back, and so we're hoping for the DeAndre Carter show every week.
Palmer.
Well, Palmer has got it together. Early in the year, he and Justin
Right.
were not on the same page. Palmer has definitely got it together, out of necessity, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's the thing is he got the opportunity, but it's also important to say a guy that we got on early in one of our Thursday night streams, like, who was not on the same page. We talked about it in the podcast the following week. He, over the last couple of weeks, has started to build that rapport. They do have a connection. Unfortunately, it's because of necessity, right? That's the only way they could do it. Is that, again, it's kind of like Aaron Rodgers. There's nobody left to throw it to. I'm going to whip it up to Watson. Got to throw it to Palmer, but they've managed to do it, and Palmer has responded, and that's good to see. But it's sort of like the ultimate Pyrrhic victory, like, oh, Josh Palmer's good because all the other wide receivers are dead. It's terrible.
I am going to see them this Sunday, by the way. I'm going to be at the primetime game in SoFi. This is my first Chiefs game ever.
Oh.
So Nikki and I are going to be down in San Diego, and we're driving up from San Diego that morning to go out there and hopefully, see a good game, because it feels like every time we get Herbert and Mahomes on the same field, we get a good game out of it. So I'm hoping that we get another one here, especially now that Herbert seems to be healthy. So I'm excited. If you guys are going to the game, whether you're a Chiefs fan or Chargers fan, please let me know, because we want to stop by and steal your food at the tailgate if possible. So, just let me know. Let me know in the comments. So we'll be there. And then I think that's the last game I'm going to until next month. I might be in New York for Eagles Giants, maybe. I don't know. It's December in New York. It is kind of cold, but I'm trying to make it happen. Anyway, those are my plans for this weekend. Long story short, Chargers are hurt again. They're hanging on to the playoff race again, somehow. And I can only imagine this is going to come down to the last week of the season. 2 minutes to go, tie game, ball in Herbert's hands, because the Chargers only know how to play one type of football game, and it's the type that is agonizingly close for no logical reason. So I'm looking forward to that. And with that, EJ, let's get to 3 fun. 3 fun, number 1. This is probably long overdue on this show, but Tua is playing out of his damn mind. And this is not just a recent development. Pretty much the entire year he has played out of his mind. Lest we forget that before he got concussed in Week 4 against the Bengals, he was on pace to be the fastest quarterback ever to 1,000 yards in a season. And then, he was out for a couple weeks and came back, and he just kind of picked up right where he left off. But this week in particular, I think, was the magnum opus. Like, this was the game of his life. If you not statistically, I think he's had a couple better statistical games, but you look at the film, some of the throws he was making, like, they were backbreakers. Incredible touch and timing and anticipation, under pressure, out of structure, in structure. Like, he was freaking dialed to a level that we just haven't seen yet. And he's had a great year. This game was ridiculous. There was I can't remember who number 14 the receiver is on the Dolphins, but he threw a fade to him at the back pylon out of empty for a touchdown that, could not be thrown any better. Like, within a 6-inch box, could not be thrown any better. There was a throw over the middle to Waddle against like a mixed coverage where it was man on one side, zone on the other, and he threw it and he ear-holed the linebacker over the middle in a deep seam route that was gorgeous. And every time you look up, he's just throwing dots. This was the Tua arrival game, I should say. Not that he hasn't been spectacular this year, but I think this was the game where I think even amongst football Twitter, you could see people go, oh, this is real. This isn't going to stop. Like, this is just how he is. This is just how the Dolphins' offense is. They're just a threshing machine. And I don't know if anybody could stop them at this point because they ran the ball, they threw the ball, they could pass protect, they could run block, they play defense. Like, this team they're ready to go. They are absolutely ready to go.
I didn't watch this one super closely. It was on a screen that was farther away from us while we were at Buffalo Wild Wings. And I just sort of checked in. Like, when I'd go to the bathroom, I'd look at the score and I'd see a little bit. And then I got home. And late last night, I started watching it. And I was rewinding and rewinding and rewinding. And I wasn't even through the second quarter. And I'd probably rewound 6 throws.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what in the hell? Like, he hasn't missed by more than like 2 inches yet. And these are not, people talk about, timing, touch, little throws, crossing patterns, yak. No. Like, stop it. Don't do that anymore. Go back and watch this film. He was drilling the ball at NFL depths, 13 to 18 yards across the middle, right between 2 defenders on the numbers, over and over. Even the throws that weren't completed, they hit the receivers. Like, the receivers didn't complete the catch, whether it was through contact or they just dropped him or whatever else. Even his incompletions were on the freaking dial. It's ridiculous. When you talk about NFL history, a lot of games played in NFL history. Only 2 players in NFL history have had 3 consecutive games with 275 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, and 135-plus passer rating. 99 Kurt Warner, greatest show on turf, won the MVP, and 2022 Tua. That's it. That's it. That's all there is for that particular stat. Fine, you say, you can cherry pick stats all day. It's true, we can. We're going to keep
this
doing
offense actually compares pretty favorably to greatest show on turf, by the way. If you look at how it's built, like, they're not that dissimilar.
Not dissimilar. Highest passer rating on third down in a single season since 2000, so last 22 years. 2022 Tua is 149.8 so far. It's not done with the season yet.
That's damn near perfect.
Aaron Rodgers, the next highest in the last 22 years, 2009 Aaron Rodgers, 133.5. And strangely, the wild card, 2004 Dante Culpepper at 133.4, which is staggering. That's just a fun one thrown in there. But literally 133 to 149 is the difference between the best to do it in the last 22 years on third down and Tua. Like, this is not one throw, one type of throw. The little throw. The game manager throw. The on time. He's a system quarterback. Stop it. Like, he ain't. He is drilling it. Nobody in the league right now is playing better, more consistently on the full breadth of what a quarterback needs to do than Tua. He is. They just keep ripping off wins, and everybody goes, it's the talent around him. And I saw a friend of ours, a very prominent analyst who will remain nameless this morning, go, that's really a product of his environment. I'm like, oh, dude, no, shh. Go back, watch the tape. Like, the throws he made yesterday against Cleveland were not a product of his environment. Yes, protection matters. Yes, weapons matter. But if you hit that weapon right here at 18 yards between 2 defenders, like 4 times in a row before the first half is over, it's not your environment. You're ripping it. You understand the offense, you're in sync, and you are throwing the ball with deadly accuracy. Tua is on top of the world right now. Talk about perception. Josh Allen and Justin Herbert have combined for 12 picks since Tua threw his last one. 12.
Especially Josh Allen over the last 3 weeks. Like, you look at some of the reckless interceptions that he's had that were indefensible. Like, and the book on Tua for a long time was like, well, he can't make the throws that Josh can, but he protects the ball and the dreaded game manager label. Well, he's making pretty damn good throws, and he's protecting the ball, and the Dolphins are winning.
Yeah.
A lot. So
hey, he's pushing the ball down the field. That's the thing. I've said that even on this program, like that. Hey, he is about. We've said it since before he was drafted. Accuracy and timing. Accuracy and timing.
Mm-hmm.
he drove the ball yesterday in Cleveland. Like, he had multiple throws over 10 to 12 yards on a line, on a dime. Just one after another, after another, after another, to the point where you don't go, oh, that was a really good throw. Like, that was a really good throw, and that was a really good throw, and that was a really good throw. And you get to the end of the game, and there's a whole stack of, holy shit, he's ripping it throws.
I think, especially in light of recent events that have happened with Josh Allen, I think that there's 3 main contenders for MVP. 4, technically, if you count Saquon, just because it's Saquon. But in terms of, like, 3 main quarterback contenders for MVP, it's Patrick Mahomes, who's probably number 1 right now, especially if you watch that last primetime game where they literally would not have won without him. It's Jalen Hurts. As long as they keep winning and as long as he keeps playing like he is, they're going to be in the conversation. He's going to be in the conversation. And then it's Tua. Like, those are the top 3 quarterbacks in the league right now in terms of MVP consideration. And Josh Allen was there, but he keeps giving the ball away, and the other 3 are not. So, that's kind of a big part of the job description is don't give the ball to the other team. So I think, looking at guys that are making big-time throws and protecting the ball and putting their teams in position to win and, making runs at first seeds and setting themselves up for a nice January, like, those are 3 quarterbacks right now in the league that are doing it better than anybody else. And Tua is one of them. So good for him. Good for kind of with everything that he withstood over the last couple of years with, him and Flores not getting along and, ownership trying to push him out essentially. And he fought back and he stuck with it. And Mike McDaniel came in and McDaniel believed in him and said, we can do this together, and they're doing it together. So, good for Tua. Just, that's the number one thing. Good for Tua. He's been through a lot. And I think that he has a right to be kind of a cocky asshole about it because a lot of people were cocky assholes to him. So, if he's got a little hair on his chest in the press conference, I'm all for it. I think he's earned it.
And he's so not. That's the thing. Is anybody that gets to spend...
He's had a couple snipes at the press, but I think he earned it.
In press conferences, but if you talk to folks that spend time around Tua, and we haven't. I've certainly never... I don't think I've even ever met him. But everybody that spends a lot of time around him says super humble, nicest guy, doesn't cuss, so I'm not sure he'd want to come on the show, but he'd probably be nice about it. Just a really personable guy, and hasn't let all that stuff, because there's a lot of stuff, gets him, and he's just out there doing what he always believed he could do, but he's doing it at such a high level right now with the addition of Mike McDaniel and that offense. He just understands it, and they're going to be so tough to stop. It's fun to watch. If you're a football fan, other than being maybe a Bills fan because, sworn enemy of the Dolphins, it's fun to watch right now.
I did mention Saquon being in the conversation tangentially for MVP just because the Giants would not be the Giants without him. I do want to bring up 3 fun number 2, which was it was a big Sunday for running the ball. So, Saquon maintained his pace for the season, racking up another $150 against Houston. Jonathan Taylor had his first big game in a while. Another, close to $150, 6.7 per carry. Aaron Jones went off. Dalvin went off. Justin Fields went off. And he's one of the 10 most productive rushers in the entire NFL this year so far. And he's a freaking quarterback. And they didn't even start calling designed runs for him until like a month ago. And he's still in the top 10 rushing. So huge week for running the ball. And all of these guys, in one way or another, were kind of the main reason why they won.
Yeah, we've talked about pretty much all these guys. We don't need to belabor the point throughout the podcast, but, Taylor was a huge reason the Colts won that game. You can talk all you want about Jeff Saturday, but when you get the offensive line working together, and again, as you said with Taylor, he breaks through wide open holes. He's easily talented enough to rack up damn near $150. Saquon's pace is ridiculous. Brian Dable loves him and hates him. Loves what he can do, has no regard for his physical safety because every week it's as many runs as Saquon can carry. Aaron Jones, we talk about him being a superstar all the time. We got to see him do it, in Buffalo, and we see him do it all the time. Tony Pollard finally gets his spot in the sun with no Zeke, runs up 115, 5.2 per, almost got Dallas the win. Not his fault they didn't. He did everything he could have. Justin Fields, 147 rushing yards, 11.3 per carry. They probably, again, should have knocked off Detroit, much like the Cowboys should have knocked off the Packers. They had a very good win percentage going into the game late. But the Bears in general break the 1976 Steelers NFL record of 4 straight 225-yard rushing games. This is the Bears' 5th straight game, so they break that record from 1976. And Justin is a huge part of that. He's number 6 overall in the league right now in rushing. Now, for quarterbacks, he is the 6th best rusher in the league. He has more yards than Aaron Jones, who we just talked about, who we love and think is a superstar. Mm-hmm. And again, they didn't start calling designed runs until a month ago. And he's the 6th best rusher in the league. Easy for me to say. Wow. It's fun for somebody that likes rushing, and it's been suppressed. It's been passing. I've said it. It's a passing league. Modern NFL. You gotta pass. All these guys basically drove their teams forward on the strength of their rushing attack, and it was a lot of fun. Dalvin's 81-yarder in that game against Buffalo. That's the difference. They don't win without it.
Yeah, that's what helped,
Literally.
Start and spark everything, because they needed it. It was a one-play drive.
Yeah, and he has that talent. We just kind of haven't seen a week where we saw Mixon, last week, 5 touchdowns and whatever, but this week it just felt like every time you turned on, here goes another guy on a 40, 50-yard run, or here goes a guy that's averaging 6.5 yards a carry. That is explosive enough to replace some passing downs and still be thought of as efficient NFL football. So good times.
There's an old coaching idiom from, I think it was the 60s or 70s, because of course it was. There's 3 things that can happen when you throw the ball, and 2 of them are bad.
Yeah.
And I think that that perfectly encapsulated the Bears game, because they ran all over them, put up 30 points, but that pick 6 was what lost them the game. That game was well in hand. Mm-hmm. But Justin, I still don't even know if he was trying to throw it away or if he just missed. Yeah. I have no idea how that happened. But that pick 6 from Okudah is what got the Lions back in the game, which is an excellent transition for fun number 3, which is Dan Campbell got his first road win as the Lions head coach. That pick 6, as we mentioned, was a big reason in terms of sparking the comeback. They were down by 2 possessions late in the game. He was 0-11-1 going into this game on the road, let alone being down by 2 possessions. And he desperately needed this one. The Lions desperately needed this one, and they gutted it out. And, all credit in the world to them. Obviously, they got gashed a lot on the ground, as they do every single week. But the offense, went blow for blow, especially in the fourth quarter. The Bears secondary couldn't stop a freaking nosebleed. Jalen Johnson gave up a huge one on 3rd down for 30 yards to, was it Tom Kennedy, I think it was, on a crossing route, where he just kind of gave him a little shoulder ride and broke inside. And honestly, once that ball got caught, I was like, oh God, they're going to lose. Because if you can't even rely on Jalen Johnson to stop Tom Kennedy, you're going to lose. Yep. And lost they did. So credit to the Lions for coming back. Obviously a really tough loss for Justin Fields, because he left it all out there. But I kind of wanted to focus on the positive, which is Detroit getting a much-needed dub. The first one on the road for Dan Campbell, and I'm happy for him. I really am.
Yeah, they've worked hard, and we've been very complimentary of that whole program of Brad Holmes in the last 2 drafts and Campbell's culture building. And their offensive success this year we've talked about multiple times in previous weeks. The defense, still a problem. We knew that. But the ability to be resilient, at some point, it doesn't matter how bad the team was before you got there. It doesn't matter how unbalanced they are in roster or cap construction or anything else. You just eventually are 0-15 if you don't win one on the road, and that just stacks up. You don't get to sort of survive those kind of things. Hey, Dan Campbell never won a road game. That's a terrible thing. Half of the games every year are road games. He's going to have to start winning them. It was a good place for them to get off the schneid. It was an impressive victory. Again, they were down. Chicago had this in hand. couple of plays. We talk about that narrow margin of victory, that pick six. Yeah, I got a big groan from JB and I in the bar. We were like, what? Oh, Andy's going to score 2. Bummer. And the secondary giving up completions late in the game, it really, you can just sort of roll that forward and look at the pass rush. And the pass rush was unable to get to Goff all day. It's been a problem. Don't be surprised if the Bears spend an early pick on a 3-tech or, some devastating edge if they're there, because they need it.
Any warm body that can get the quarterback at this point.
You were talking about Jacksonville corners a couple of weeks ago. Like, I'll take anybody. Give me somebody functional. And I feel that way about the Bears pass rush. And the bottom line is the secondary is really good. They invested in it, but you can't hold up all day. You can't be doing 4.5, 5 seconds worth of coverage all day and then get to the fourth quarter. It's much like a punishing run attack that we saw from the Panthers, right? You wear people down and then you start running them over in the fourth quarter. The secondary basically just got run over late in the game and couldn't hold it together because they have to cover for a long time every play. The Lions are really talented on offense, and they managed to use that leverage, win the game. Happy for Campbell and the Lions. It's a bummer for Justin. It happens. A lot of good stuff on both sides from the game, but Lions fans got to be happy they got off that schneid.
The only thing that gave me a little bit of solace is, hey, at least the draft pick's still a little bit better.
That's, somebody said a while ago, the best possible result is that Justin struggles valiantly every game and loses by 2 or 3.
Hey, losses are losses. If it gets me closer to Jalen Carter, I'm good with it. As long as we show life and we don't get embarrassed, we're okay. And so far, hey, the strategy's working out. Good on you, Justin. Take one for the team.
That's right. You got to show development, which he's obviously done over the last month, but a lot of folks have a very similar viewpoint to you, which is,
it's not the worst.
They lose late. Like, hey, they showed what they needed to show, and they still get a better draft pick. Right now, I saw standings after this week. They're currently sitting at 6th.
6. Well, there's probably going to be at least 3 quarterbacks that go early. Mm-hmm. So... Yeah, we're in decent position for Will Anderson.
6 is fine. Top 10 is a good place to be. Bears certainly have plenty of needs. They have a first-round pick this year, so sitting at 6, pretty solid. They can get some help there for sure.
Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Quentin Johnston. Either one, I'm good. All right. Finally, favorite segment of the week coming right up. Bootleg shot of the week. All right, bootleg shot of the week time. You all voted overwhelmingly last week for show favorite, future Hall of Famer, all decade, top 3. I'm going to be generous. Say top 3 weapon in history. Cordero Patterson. First game back, running over people at the goal line, putting all 230 pounds into it. He's a return phenom. He's a receiver. He's a running back. He's a gunner. Simply one of the best football players of my lifetime in terms of well-rounded football players of my lifetime. I love you, Cordero Patterson. This one's for you, bud. Anytime I get to talk about him, it's a good episode.
Yeah. And some folks are like, EJ, why are you drinking coffee? Well, I'll let you figure that out. But Cordero is also a fantastic recruiter, which a lot of people don't know. He's one of those guys come free agency time. He's on Twitter like, yo, hey, what's up?
Well, he's been around like 10 years at this point. So people know him. They love him.
Yep. He's like, come on
down. Old wily vet.
Yep. For sure.
And he's still so explosive, like 31 years old. He was a shoelace away from breaking one on Thursday. He's getting so close. But anyway, cheers to you, Cordero Patterson. We have 4 new nominees this week. A couple returners. No, that's not the right word. A couple returning nominees. They weren't returners. One of them actually crushed a returner.
But we'll did some bad things to returners.
First things first, Rachaad White. You knew this was coming. Had to put it in. Massive stiff arm. Might be the stiff arm of the year on Quandre Diggs. Kind of putting an exclamation point on that Bucs win over in Munich. And I'm really happy the Germans got to see that in person because that was just brutal.
It was great full extension.
Full
right?
extension,
He
like Derrick Henry style,
literally
toss him.
Torques, right? From, like, loads up, winds up, and gives the full, like, I'm going out to the fingertips. And Quandre Diggs is no slouch. Great safety. Buried him.
Nominee number 2, Dylan Cole making another appearance. Now, we talked about crushing returners. He's the one that did it. I mean, took him off his feet, leveled him on, I think it was a kick return or a punt return. I can't remember which one.
Again, I wasn't watching this game particularly closely, and I happened to look up live and see the guy go flying backwards. And from TV angle, there's some other folks in front, so I couldn't quite tell who did it or what, but literally he runs into a crowd and then he bounces back like 2 or 3 yards and lands on his ass. And I was like, did that just happen? Like, that's a fully grown man running at full speed, and he just looks like he hit a wall.
He looked like he ran into a trampoline.
Yeah, and turns out the wall is Dylan Cole. So we had Dylan Cole on a couple of weeks ago. He earned this one. This was a nasty knock.
Nominee number 3 is Landon Roberts doing what very few people have ever done, which is decleating Nick Chubb. Extraordinarily hard to do, especially if you look at elsewhere in the game. Nick Chubb literally bouncing off people for a long touchdown run. Out leveraging him ain't easy, but Landon Roberts did it.
This one's my favorite. Normally I don't say that before folks vote, but it is so hard to do. And Landon Roberts did it so cleanly. Like, this is a form tackle, picked up one of the most rooted running backs in the game, moved him 90 degrees, and put him on his back. Like, that is not something you see with Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb always finishes his runs falling forward. Landon Roberts said, this week, and it's awesome.
And then nominee number 4, another Titan, this time on defense, Rashad Weaver. I mentioned it a little bit earlier on that strip sackle. God.
Strip sackle.
We're at the, what are we, hour and 43 into recording? We're at the part where this added up with this, and when you got scotch and tequila mixed together, things happen, EJ. Things happen.
Strip sackle. That's what's going on the wall. Okay.
Strip sack. I mentioned earlier this was what set up the 4th down pick, but this happened in like the last minute of the game. Rashad Weaver, who had 10 pressures in this game, he was a monster for them. And I think he's like top 40 in the entire league among all edge rushers, interior rushers, like all the hundreds of guys. He's like top 40 in the league now because of this game. Had a gorgeous like Euro step kind of like outside swim combo where he flashed speed to power and then Euro stepped out of it and swam over the top, hit Russell from behind, just crunched him, got a big forced fumble. I think they lost like 10 yards on the play. It was just an amazing play to make Russell Wilson's life that much harder in this one and help seal a victory for Tennessee. That whole defensive front in general, like Danico Autry,
Simmons,
Rashad Weaver, Simmons, like they don't even have Harold Landry, and they're arguably the best 4-man pass rush in the NFL, and they don't even have Landry. Like, they are insanely good, which makes me a little bit worried about the Packers on Thursday, because I don't know how you block these dudes, but they're fun to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm very envious. We just talked about the lack of a Bears pass rush. Every week when I watch the Titans, I'm like, oh, damn. Wouldn't it be nice to get that kind of pressure rushing for with very few games? They will run stunts, but like this one especially was pure one-on-one win. This wasn't helped by setup, by structure. Like, he basically dodged inside. Nice combo dynamic move to the outside to basically move his hips past and clear the hands. And then big play in a big spot.
Yeah, Titans are just one of those teams where they can line up and say, we're better than you, deal with it. And they usually are. And they are actually headlining our week 11 now? Week 11 watch list?
Yep.
They're headlining it. They are on Thursday night. We're going to be streaming during that game, giving as much live analysis and commentary as we possibly can. And honestly, this game is super intriguing, so I don't think we're going to have to tap dance for the last 2 hours to make it interesting. I think this one will just naturally be interesting, so come on by for that. We go live a half hour before kickoff. We go all the way through the game. I'll get the whiteboard going. We're going to talk about all the different coverages the Titans like to run because they do some fun stuff back there as well. We'll talk about their pressure packages. We'll talk about hopefully Christian Watson doing more Christian Watson things. So stop by on Thursday for that. And then after that, we got a whole bunch of other great Week 11 games to hit up on Sunday and Monday. EJ, which ones are you looking forward to?
Yeah, Titans-Packers, the headliner, just because of a clash of styles. And really, again, if this last weekend hadn't happened, this game probably wouldn't have been as high on the watch list. But with the Packers resurging and the Titans playing very strong football, it becomes a really fun game. Jets-Patriots. Talked about the struggle in the AFC East, and really, this is always fun. Now the Jets have to go into Foxborough. Bill Belichick gets, some time to prepare. This is going to be a good one either way. Cowboys-Vikings. I think a month ago we would have thought this game was tilted pretty strongly in the other direction. Right now the Vikings are on a roll. Cowboys are licking their wounds after the Packers. Should be a fun one. And the oddly fascinated game is Panthers-Ravens. Again, a game you would have sort of thrown in the waste bin at the beginning when you were looking at the schedule. Panthers resurgent under Steve Wilkes. Ravens, always fun. The defense of the Ravens versus the offensive line of the Panthers and Deontay Foreman is going to be worth the price of admission.
How many passes do you think get thrown in that game? Over, under 40?
I'm going to say under because P.J. Walker's hurt. And
it's Baker Mayfield, right? That's who's going?
It is Baker Mayfield for the Panthers, and Mark Andrews is still hurt. Is that correct?
He's been kind of off and on the injury report all year. Let me kind of double check this live.
I'm going to say if PJ's down on the Panthers side and Mark Andrews is down on the Ravens side, I would go under 40. I would put under 40 on the slip for the combo.
Yeah, they're saying he's still dealing with a shoulder, but I don't know if they've given any sort of indication about status or anything like that.
Well, either way, we'll stylistically, from a defensive and offensive perspective, that matchup of Panthers O and Ravens D is going to be really, really interesting.
And by the way, if Andrews does actually get on the field, we might get a few snaps of J.C. Horn versus Andrews in the slot, which, for me, absolutely also worth the price of admission. So, very intriguing game. Man, yeah, this episode's been a little bit longer than I expected, so we're going to get out of here as quickly and quietly as we can. EJ, what do you got going this week over on Bears Over Beers?
Bears Over Beers, I'm going to be looking at one of your favorites, Jack Sanborn.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, I almost did him last week in my All-22 review, but this week, aside from some bad luck, would have had an exceptional game, but had a very good game. It's time to talk about what he brings in the wake of Roquan Smith moving on, so we'll be talking about that. We do that live on Wednesday night, goes up on the channel on Thursday, and then Thursday night, be right here with you talking about a very cool matchup. So that's what I got going on. What do you got going on?
I fully realize that all of our wonderful editors who may or may not be watching this right now have a lot to do with their family over Thanksgiving week. So I'm going to try to do like the easiest film room I can think of, and then get everybody out of here by like Saturday, and then they won't have to deal with me next week. And then I think they'll they'll just help with the podcast, and then we're all done by Wednesday, and we can take Thanksgiving through Sunday and not doing anything and enjoying family. So I think I might do either Tua or the Raiders. I don't think I'll have time to do a Christian Watson one before the Thursday game, but either Tua or the Raiders is what I'm thinking. Maybe Geno Smith. We'll see. But either way, I want to try to make it like a nice, chill, easy episode so they can kind of, go do their holiday thing and not worry about doing shit for me for a while. I think it'll be nice for them.
Seems completely reasonable.
So that'll do it for us. Again, make sure to come back on Thursday for the stream. Thank you to all of our executive producers, Marat, Consti, Caden, Fitzy, Taylor, and Liam. We appreciate all of you very much for helping to make this possible. We'll be back next week on Wednesday with our Week 11 recap. And then we're not doing a stream on Thanksgiving, right?
I don't think so. I was going to bring it up, but we'll have a final on that this Thursday. I don't believe we'll be streaming on Thanksgiving.
I don't think we will. I'm going to put it out in the ether. I don't think we will. So either way, we'll see you guys very soon. And until then, later.
Take care.